Well, good
Okay.
afternoon, Christian Metal Facebook group. We are here with Kevin. He is with Heaven's Metal Streaming Radio.
Hello, faithful.
There we go. And I am Jimmy, one of the admins, and we have musician extraordinary. I can't even say that right. Musician extraordinaire Jay.
Hey, hello everyone. Obviously, I'm a moderator for Christian Metal Group, and it's great to be here.
Awesome. Well, so the Heavens Metal Streaming Radio is one of our ministry partners, and we just want to get on here and find out about them and promote them. So, Kevin, tell us a little bit. Let's go back. Tell us a little bit about your faith journey.
I grew up in going to a Presbyterian church in Hayward, California. When I was 12, I went to a Methodist summer camp, and a guy by the name of Ginger Kelly. This was probably July of 1980, somewhere in there. Went to camp all week. This gentleman, Ginger Kelly, was the speaker, and it really was the first time that I'd really heard the gospel message, honestly, as a 12-year-old, but it was a different environment. And he gave an altar call one night, and that's when I went forward. I received Jesus. For the next 3 years, I would go to summer camp, and I would backslide. And I'd go to summer camp, and I would backslide.
Wow.
And I did that for several years. When I was 15, it was a New Year's Eve party. I was going to a youth group New Year's Eve party, and somebody said, hey, we're going to this concert, blah, 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 blah. Oh, concert. Oh, it's a Christian rock band concert. I'm like, what's that? And so a buddy of mine said, hey, you should check this out. They rock pretty good. And it was Petra, but it was out of this world. And I'm listening to the Doxology Visions intro, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. And then I hear this acoustic guitar thing, and long story short, I was like kind of sort of skeptical, but I went, and God used that event in January of 84 to just kind of light the fire. And I really, at that point, I went in to this event concert one way, and I came out very different. And Christian music has always been it's been very important to me. And having said that, I mean, that kind of jump started me, not just going to Christian summer camp and falling away, going to Christian summer camp and falling away.
That's awesome. That's amazing that we're still fighting that today. That can a Christian rock band really be a ministry when we have now 40 years of it, being a ministry with fruit,
Yeah. It's I'm amazed still. And honestly, when people want to argue that, I'm like, I have more important things, honestly, not to be rude or anything else. I can appreciate when someone doesn't share that point of view. Hey,
Sure.
That's okay. But there are other things that are more pressing in the church and in society in general. So
Yeah, cool. So let's talk about your metal journey. We talked about your Christian journey, and I know you mentioned Petra already. So when did things take a turn for the heavier?
okay, you have to go back like 4 years before that.
Okay.
So I'm going to junior high school. When I was in elementary school, like 5th grade, 6th grade, all my buddies, all my friends, and I should say all, but several of them, it was Kiss. I hated Kiss.
Oh wow.
Okay. And I was just like, what is this? I'm like, I don't understand. It's just noise. And I'll never forget one day I'm home from school. I'm probably in the 5th grade. I'm sick. You know, one of those things you're just like, I'm sick. And you're sick. So I'm watching TV. And what are they advertising? Kiss double platinum. And here's Gene Simmons spitting blood. And I'm sick. And I'm like, this is gross. I mean, that's just me.
Yeah.
And I just, no. So here we go, 2 years later, whatever, 7th grade. And when I was in elementary school, unfortunately, I was in you're a teacher's pet, you're the nerd, you're getting picked on. Let's go to junior high school. I started hanging out with a different crowd, essentially the stoners.
Uh-oh.
But I never did any of that stuff. But these guys that I hung out with, they were cool with me. They talked to me. They didn't pick on me. They didn't make fun of me. They didn't mock me. It was like we hung out, and then I went to class, and then at lunch we'd hang out, and then I would go to class and then go home. And long story short, it was probably October 1980. Back in Black, AC/DC. Somebody was playing "What Do You Do for Money, Honey" on their 8-track boombox.
Yes, there we go.
And I was like, oh, what is that? I like that. That's kind of cool. So what do? I run out and I buy the cheapest AC/DC album I could find, which is Let There Be Rock, which was $5.99 at Sears.
Oh yeah.
And my dad, about a month later, whatever it was, my parents bought me Back in Black for my birthday.
Oh.
Biggest mistake they ever made, because I wore that record out. And every month I bought a new AC/DC record with my paper route money.
Was this vinyl when you say record?
It was all vinyl.
Nice.
And all that stuff is long gone. I've actually, yeah, it's all gone.
That's a sad story.
So here's the thing. I wore out 2 vinyl copies of Back in Black.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wore it out. I played it so much. And so that was in 80. And then in 81, it was like things started to pick up a bit. And Scorpions and Van Halen, and then Judas Priest in 82. But of course, my cousins were very much, I had 2 cousins. They both really liked Rush. I'd really never heard Rush. But one day I was visiting them. Hey, and I had told them, I said, hey, at the records shop near my home, they have like the big bargain thing. And I see you don't have Corrosive Steel. They have that for $3.99. I'd buy it for you if you want. Oh, that would be great. Okay. The first Rush record I ever heard was Corrosive Steel, which nowadays people go, it's wonderful. Back then it was basement bargain fodder. But I love Bastille Day and the Necromancer and Lakeside Park. And yeah. So, and then in 83, what came out in 83? A buddy of mine bought Kill 'Em All by Metallica, and he hated it. Now, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. He was like, I just can't get into this. I said, well, let me try it. I put it on. I heard Hit the Lights. I heard Whiplash, No Remorse, Seek and Destroy. I was...
Yeah. And that'll hook you for sure, man. So you got into those bands, and then you heard Petra, and you're like, all right, I like this. What was the first heavier Christian band?
Now the plot thickens. In 1981, I'm just kind of stuck here in 1981. 81, 82. It was, I'm pretty sure it was 8th grade. And one day me and a couple friends of mine, we took a bus to school. And this guy that I knew through another friend, he was probably a year or 2 older than me. And he said, oh man, there's this band you've got to check out, because my whole thing, I just was all music. So, band you got to check out. They're as heavy as Judas Priest. They're just like AC/DC. You're gonna. And I'm like, well, who are they? They're called the Resurrection Band.
Oh,
wow. Yeah.
Okay. And so he loaned me a cassette of Mommy Don't Love Daddy Anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, well, what is it? It's a Christian band. I'm like, well, I'm going to church, but I've never heard this. And I remember I listened to it. I heard Stark Spare, and I kind of went, I'm not a big fan. At that time, I was not a big fan of the female vocal for Wendy's vocal.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Alienated. I loved The Chair.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side was First Degree Apathy, which Wendy sings, but it's heavier. It reminds me of this punk band called X, and Under the Big Black Sun or something like that. It had the same type of riff. So I gave him the cassette back, and it was like, well, okay, thanks. So let's go back to 84. After Petra, what happens? 4 weeks later, there's another concert. You guys want to go? Oh, yeah. Who is it? Res Band. Res Band? And someone had loaned me a copy of Colors on vinyl.
there you go.
And then I was like, okay, I've heard these guys before. This other guy, da-da-da-da-da-da. So we went and saw Res. This was like February. It was either end of February, beginning March of 84 on the live bootleg tour. And it was awesome. The show wasn't, I mean, the other people were like, this is just, I can't understand the words. I'm like, I don't care. It's great.
Yeah.
And, American Dream and Military Man and White Noise and Colors, and they played Game Room, Quite Enough. And hearing Glenn preach at the end was like, wow. Mm-hmm. So that was the first start of moving into heavier stuff. In the Christian side of things. Because then at that point, at that time, I was like, I kind of divested from all of the secular stuff that I'd been listening to. So it was Barnabas, it was Daniel Band, it was First Strike, it was Res, it was Jerusalem. And that was kind of it. I mean,
what about Force 3?
Huh?
Force 3.
Okay, Force 3 is 1989.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right, that makes sense. I didn't realize it was that far.
You're talking 1984, and it was like when you went to the Christian bookstore, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, all of those bands were either on Murata. Well, actually, Saint and Messiah Prophet hadn't come out yet.
Or Messiah Prophet.
So, okay.
Messiah Prophet, I love that album.
Okay, so in 84, it was like there's this stuff, and it was just kind of percolating, and it was all new to me. And I still had a hard time not listening to Rush or Iron Maiden, in 84, Power Slave, and so on and so forth. So I read an article in Campus Life, probably it was February or March of 84, about this band that had been signed and was going to release their debut album months away. And there's this little picture write-up.
Striper?
It was this band called Striper, who had been signed to Enigma Records.
I was wondering when they were going to come up.
And so we get into 84. Barnabas was Feel the Fire. I had bought Approaching Light Speed. Daniel Band that year was Run from the Darkness. Res in 84 was Hostage after Bootleg. And then all of a sudden I went into the Bible bookstore one day and I see Messiah Prophet and I see Saint. And I was like, what is that? And I put on, because back then you could take the records, you could listen to them. And I was reminded of this other band. And then I see this issue of Contemporary Christian Music Magazine. I'm flipping through it, and they talk about how Striper's album had been released the month prior. And I'm like, well, it's not here in the bookstore.
Yeah.
So I get on my 10 speed, and it was like a 3-4 mile ride from my house to the bookstore. And then it was another, I think from the bookstore to Record Factory was probably another mile. Rode over to the Record Factory. I walk in, I go to the import section under S, and I pull it up, and there it is.
Wow.
Yellow and Black Attack. And it was an early pressing because half the hand was cut off.
I have that. Yeah.
And, and I was like, are these guys really Christian? I don't know. It says, thanks to Jesus Christ, the boss man, but they didn't have it at the Christian bookstore. I don't care. If they sing about God and it's good, I don't care.
How much was that album?
$6.99.
Wow.
So I still have my copy of it. You have to forgive me. My little man room thing is in shambles at the moment, but I still have that original copy. I actually found a second copy last year that I picked up for. It was very inexpensive at one of these little antique mall things. So, but yeah. So then I had Striper, and it was just like things seemed to be kind of going. 85 junior year. I'm pretty sure at that point I met this guy when I would go, because the people in the bookstore, they recognized me, and I couldn't get a job. I wanted to get a job there. I thought this would be the greatest thing in the world. And so what ends up happening is I meet this guy, his name's Dave Johnson, and we start talking, and he's telling me about all these other bands that I'd never heard of before. Leviticus, who's that? 100% Proof, who's that? And then I ended up, eventually I got a job at the Bible bookstore. He told me about Matrix.
Brad.
Okay.
Become Brad.
And then once I finally got a job there, I discovered Philadelphia. And but Dave introduced me to the Tape Trading Underground. And that was how you learned about new stuff.
Yeah.
It was like somebody would say, look, this is what I have. And so, I have a live concert of this or a demo of that. And you would say, well, I have 45. So you're looking for someone who you want their 45-minute demo of X band. So you have to say, look, I'd like to trade you for that. And what trade means, make a copy, then I'll make a copy of what you want from mine, and then we swap.
Right.
Okay. And that's what we did. And I mean, that's how I heard Leviticus's second album a year before it came out in the United States.
Oh, wow.
This is on swapping on cassettes, right?
Yes, on cassette tape. So,
wow.
Yeah. And Dave said, hey, I want fanatics. You want to start a magazine with me? I'm talking to other fanatics. And we started White Throne magazine. And
what year was that?
First issue was 1986. I did my first interview was Daryl Mansfield.
Wow.
For the Revelation record.
Yeah.
Played at a church in San Francisco. And we did that. Dave had interviewed, I think in the first issue was Mark Timpson from Omega, that Bill Bafford at Rocks just released all of the stuff earlier this year. In the second issue, I did an interview with Daniel Band and up in Sacramento. And then I did oh goodness, I can't remember at this point. It just but also in 86, I started this, I think it was either 86 or 87. I think it was 86. I did this little cassette thing called the White Metal Show. And I had talked to Dave about it. Basically, I had somebody say, that's the first podcast. I'm like, whatever. Okay. But what I did was I always wanted to be a radio DJ. So I borrowed this little Radio Shack 4-channel board that he had, I took a record player, a cassette player, and a cassette recorder, and I had a microphone, and I mixed this. The first show was an hour long. The other ones were 90 minutes, and I just said, hey, I advertised in Heaven's Metal magazine. If you would like a copy of the White Metal Show, send me a cassette and $2 for return postage, and I'll dub it and send it to you. And it's kind of funny is that somebody actually has all 10 of them, and they are online.
Oh, wow. That's cool,
my
man.
18, 19-year-old self. And there's still bands on a couple of those that are nowhere. I mean, their stuff's never been released or anything. So anyway, I've been babbling a lot here.
No, it's all good.
It's good information. So y'all know you talked about White Throne magazine. Now we're talking the 80s, of course, and should I say Heaven's Metal, which it was at the time, started maybe shortly after White Throne, or was it before? Was it right? It might have been right before. Was it 84 when it started, or 86?
Doug Van Pelt started Heaven's Metal, I believe, in 85.
Okay, so 80, right in between.
Yeah,
those. Okay,
and then Dave Johnson and we started White Throne. Just our thing was we wanted to just take it that next step and make it a full format magazine.
Oh, had you heard of Heaven's Metal when you started it?
Yep.
Even though
okay. I had, because I at the time it was just, let's just do this. And we printed, I don't know, 200 copies or 300 copies of the first one.
Wow.
And we had the challenge that we had was that we couldn't get the magazine. We wanted to be bi-monthly or quarterly, and it just was so much work. We had typewriters, okay, old school, where you had to type everything, and then you had to typeset it, and you had to take it to have it printed. And so Doug did all that type of stuff on his own. I think he had some people help him, especially as a magazine, as Heaven's Metal grew. But White Throne, we did it, and I stuck with Dave and White Throne probably through, I want to say it was like issue 6, and things for me changed a bit. Didn't have as much time to do that. Didn't have as much time to do the White Metal Show thing. I roadied for Soldier.
Oh, wow.
I was the roadie for Rick Hunter, lead guitar player.
Holy Soldier or Soldier?
Soldier from the San Francisco Bay Area.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so
I think I have their demo tape for Soldier. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, there was Soldier and Cross Force, and there was San Francisco Bay Area Believer, which was more of a hard rock band. Not the thrash band. They were a hard rock band. And then there was Valor, and Valor was more of a thrash band, power metal thrash band, more like what with clean vocals, kind of like Anthrax, type vocals. All Soldier, Al Whalen was the old drummer for a band called Golgotha. Golgotha was full on San Francisco Bay Area heavy.
Okay. See, I got that demo tape for that band, but I didn't know anything about them really. But it's a great demo tape.
For Prisoner?
It's just called Golgotha. There's no book with it or anything.
So last year, Rox released a version of Prisoner on CD.
Okay.
With 2 live tracks from a concert that took place in 1985. So Golgotha played, around the San Francisco Bay Area. They played at Ruthie's Inn, where it used to be Ruthie's was where all the thrash bands played, Exodus and early Metallica and just all the Bay Area thrash bands. If you saw the documentary Get Thrashed, they talk about Ruthie's Inn in that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Golgotha was not a thrash band. They had more in tune with, say, Law's Rocket or
Okay.
Okay.
Armored Saint, Judas Priest,
Right.
but they had a very San Francisco metal sound. So,
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that's
okay.
fantastic. So tell us a little bit about how did you get from White Throne magazine and now you're involved with Heaven's Metal. What does that look like?
So, I guess about 15 years ago, the proverbial, a lot of stuff, a lot of personal stuff. In the early 90s, ended up getting married, went on to do pastoral work for a few years. In the late 2000s, went through some stuff in my life and kind of went back as kind of a therapy. I kind of went back and tried to start just do music, some reviews just for myself. And I kind of reached out to a few friends. I really had not followed between about 94 through 2008, 2000, probably 2008. Hadn't really followed much Christian music.
Mm-hmm.
And so what ends up happening is Doug Van Pelt is one of the people that I reached out to.
Okay.
And there was like 10 people, Dave Johnson, a couple other old White Throne guys. And then Doug was on the list, Matt Hunt. So what ends up happening was I just thought, I started doing this blog, wrote for the blog, and then Doug said, "Hey, would you like to do some writing for Heaven's Metal also?" And I thought, sure, that'd be fun. And so I started to do that. I did a Heaven's Metal podcast back then. And I remember when I was really the newbie when Heaven's Metal did their top 100 album thing of all time.
Yeah.
And it was fun. It was funny because most of my choices got bagged on badly.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. I think one, because I was the new guy.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I was a victim of my own, and victim's a harsh, not the right word, but the end of my own making. I used to write a lot of negative reviews way back in the day. And there's always a better way to communicate than when you're 20 years old thinking you know everything.
Oh,
So so I think there was still some of that, not so much from Doug. I think Doug thought I would sparken things up a bit, but some of the other guys that were like, no, 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 I was just like, whoa, okay, and so he asked me to participate in that, and I just started doing reviews. I remember doing an interview. I did a story with Grave Robber back then, and that was a lot of fun. I wrote it like I was actually going to visit Wretched in his house.
Oh, wow.
And just did it totally differently. I had sent Sean Browning all these questions and he responded back, and I just put this story together, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so
That's awesome.
yeah, so Doug had tried to start doing had kind of did this thing called Heaven's Metal Radio.
right.
And he did it for a while, and it just wasn't. He was trying to fly it under the radar at the time, and then I forget why he ultimately stopped. I think it was just he didn't have time. Time is that elusive thing that evaporates as you get older.
Oh man.
And so I think I had suggested, hey, why don't I try to do this? And at that time, like I say, it was White Throne Metal Radio. I did the sign up through Live 365, so then everything was legit as far as royalties and all this kind of stuff. Because, and the hard part is that most people don't understand how this works. They just know that generally speaking, they pay $10 for Spotify, and I can listen to Spotify all over the world. And so what you're telling me about royalties and why I can't listen to Live 365 in Europe or in South America or Australia is wrong. And it's like, no. So we started White Throne Metal Radio, and like I say, about 2 years ago, 2.5, whatever, I decided, let's make the changeover name wise to Heaven's Metal Streaming Radio. So I do that with the video stuff I've done on YouTube. There's a YouTube channel where I did top 10 songs from Rez, top 10 songs from Mortification, top 10,
I think I watched all of those actually.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of I haven't had, honestly, at this point, I've been mulling through trying to do a top 10 for Exalt, a top 10 for a couple other bands that are just kind of elude me at the moment as far as the name, but it's one of those things. It's like trying to do the radio station, which takes time. Writing reviews takes time.
Yes, sir.
Writing liner notes sometimes for CDs and stuff. I mean, just and then the video probably takes the most time of all, which when you do editing and if you intersperse anything into the video, you know how much that adds to it. So, but yeah, so like I say, now it's I haven't written much. I've actually been working on a review for Rusty Ship.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And it's like, and that actually kind of just, Russ had submitted stuff last year for the radio station, which I played. And at the time, I remember listening to watching one of the videos, and I thought, this is cool. It's kind of grungy, but there's enough guitar. I'm like, it just breaks up. How many heavy metal songs or thrash songs can you play? Most people listen. Yeah. Most people listen to a little wider range of things occasionally. So I started just adding more stuff in, and I'm probably halfway through this review. And if it is that album they put out last year was a fantastic record.
Yeah.
No, it's not heavy metal, but it's definitely got hard rock vibe to it. If all you listen to is grindcore, no, you're not going to like it, but so
yeah, I'm definitely a huge grindcore fan, by the way. I love it all though. But yeah, that reminds me, it kind of goes into the next question, because I was gonna ask you about the criteria of things you all play on the radio. And do you all have a limit of like how heavy things can be or how light things can be? So will you play White Heart, for example, or will you play Idle Cure, or is it just like it must start at least as heavy as Brad?
So here's what I try to do. I break up the songs by era. So 1980s, 1990s, 2000, 2010s, 2020s. And as far as how heavy something is, it kind of depends. Yeah, there's some Idle Cure on the station, so you may hear Breakaway, you may hear Talk It Out. I don't think I have any White Heart on the station, but I know there's some Petra.
Yeah. There better be.
Beyond Belief, Unseen Power, Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All three of those are. And then if you go into the re-recorded stuff that Petra did, that one album, I forget the title of it now, came out about 10 years ago.
The one acoustic recording, some of the acoustic one or the electric one?
The electric one.
Yeah.
And I mean, they redid Beam a Seat. They redid Angel of Light, I think. They they're heavier.
Right, yeah. With modern technology, of course, down tuning guitars a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. So now you play something like Paramecium and things like that as well?
So on occasion, here's what I try to do, because here's what happens. You have to remember the pie, right? And the pie says essentially the vast majority of people the vast majority of people like something a little lighter, a little more traditional.
Okay.
So having said that, I have a section that I call Nuclear Attack. I mean, I could call it Nuclear Blast. I don't know, but Nuclear Attack. And that'll have stuff like, oh, gee whiz. Let me just go over here and.
You can say Sacrament or.
Yeah, it could be Sacrament. It could be Every Thought Captive. It could be, let me go. Gosh, I got to go through this list. Anything, Deliverance, Vengeance Rising,
Extol.
But I also have like a lot of a lot of the Scandinavian stuff. We did Oh Wretched Man. Oh man, I'm like drawing a blank here.
That's all right. Well, that's good. Yeah, so that gives people a lot of variety. They know whenever they go there.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, they know they can hear from Petra to not Megadeth, but Extol. Or do y'all play anything like a Megadeth or Alice Cooper or?
I don't play any Megadeth. I do have one or two Alice Cooper tracks, and that goes back to the Brutal Planet record.
Oh, right. Well, yeah. That's
okay.
amazing.
Like the title track, if you listen to the lyrics for Brutal Planet, the song Brutal Planet, I mean, he just kind of lays it right out there.
What about anything off the new Wasp albums?
I do. Yeah, there's some stuff off of the Golgotha record. There's some stuff off the Babylon record they did. There's some King's X on there. And now here's the thing: people go, but they're not Christians anymore. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So let's take a step back, and that music still communicates to me in the same way it did, as far as the intent, whether the intent behind it, those lyrics. So when I hear like the song "What Is This," off of Out of the Silent Planet, it says something to me that I know what it means.
I agree, and I keep CDs. I mean, it could be As I Lay Dying or whatever, but I don't just write off a band. Now, I might not listen to their newer stuff based on what the content is, but I can't just write off the whole history that spoke to me before, right?
Right. So I mean,
awesome.
Theoretically, then I shouldn't play any Vengeance, right?
Right.
Because Roger Martinez is not a believer anymore. But the rest of the guys,
it's only fair on one side now.
Right. So, I love it. I mean, those bands have influenced. I think that's one of the biggest things. They've influenced so many people. I remember having some conversations I know the Extol guys, for example, talk a lot about King's X and the influence on their music, for sure.
Yeah.
And a bunch of Tourniquet used to talk about it all the time.
Absolutely. I mean, there's Impilitary I play. There's a lot of different. You're not going to hear. I used to have some DeGarmo and Key in there.
Yeah.
Just because there were some songs I was like, man, this is hard rock. I often say hard rock, heavy metal, or rock, hard rock, and heavy metal.
Gotcha.
It's like we're playing Disciple, some Seventh Day Slumber, but then we're going to Motivic, or we're going to play the Seventh Power, or Recon, or Believer. There is a wide range of stuff. I just know a lot of times what happens is I hear guys that all they want to hear is one genre.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. And I'm like, you know, I one thing I do try to do is when I get new stuff, I have a segment, I call it hot tracks.
Mm.
So it's kind of like it's whatever's the most latest thing.
Yeah.
Well, and that leads into my next question. What are a few of your like top 3 newer favorite bands for you personally?
How new is new?
5 years or so.
You know, I am still really old school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, part of me would say I really dig Theocracy, but they've been
Okay.
around 15 years now,
That's
right?
fair. Yeah.
Narnia, they've been around
Like 25
25
years.
years,
Isn't
right?
that hard to believe, right?
You know,
Yeah,
Demon
exactly.
Hunter has been around 20 years.
Yep.
So, you know,
Okay, well, like Rusty Ship or
so
Witch Hazel or
Witch Hazel. Okay, so I
Nescent.
came to Witch Hazel late.
Yeah.
I picked up the last album
Mm-hmm.
of Pentecost like last year,
Yeah.
and I'm like, this is really good. I do have like the new single or one of the new singles. It's in rotation. Um, a lot of times I have to, I buy stuff, download it, or I really like to, you know, if someone wants to submit stuff, I
Yeah.
get guys that submit stuff often.
Well, I'm excited about actually Brutality's coming to my area. So
Okay. I
that's one
have
I want to go see.
Brutality's in rotation.
I just saw Ignescent a few days ago on Thursday, and then there's also Testimony of Apocalypse is a newer
Yep.
band
Yep.
we
They're in
interviewed.
rotation.
There's Hand
You
of
know who
Fire.
I do like Chaotic Resemblance a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, I
That
dig them. I
that
dig them
last
for sure.
record, Nazarites, was fantastic.
Yeah.
Before that, I really had only heard. You'll have to forgive me. I'm kind of scanning through some stuff here. I'd really, you know, Human Code is good. I don't know if you're familiar with Human Code. That is
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They
George
played in
Ochoa.
Immortal Fest. Yeah.
Yeah, George Ochoa with Michael Drive from Barren Cross.
Yep. Yep.
Um, you know, they did an EP. They did like a demo EP they released last year. Um, you know, they're the White Cross EP was good. But newer bands, it's hard because it seems to me that the majority of newer band, I mean, I shouldn't say all, but there are, I mean, All for the King, if you've heard those guys, All for
I
the
think I'm
King,
not sure.
All for the King, they are from, I believe it's Sweden. Rocks released one of their albums last year. It's fantastic. If you listen to the words are very worshipful, but it
Okay.
is not worship music. Okay. This is good melodic metal that it's excellent. They have a couple, one or two videos you can catch on YouTube, but the band All for the King is really good. Divine Martyr,
Oh
I think
wow.
it's Divine Martyr. They are, yeah, Divine Martyr. I've heard, you know, I've had some of their singles, put those into rotation. A little more symphonic,
Okay.
and I mean, those are a couple of bands. I mean, the Ironside Collective. I don't know if you've heard them.
I'm not sure if I'm too familiar with them.
Ironside Collective got a album released through the Sharon Collective.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah.
And they're like a modern. I hate to say modern because what's modern, you know? They've got that like what you would if you turned on secular hard rock radio, not classic rock, but hard rock, modern sound and stuff. They fit that whole vibe, and those guys are good.
All right.
Yeah, very cool. That's very cool. So as far as demographics, you know, we were talking about just the old school and new school. What would you say the demographics are Have you all kind of checked into that as far as what the main demographic is and that kind of thing?
As far as who listens to what?
As far as who listens to the radio station.
So when we started, it was we need to go where our bread is buttered. Okay, and that has been more on the classic side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, having said that, I've really over the last year pushed more newer stuff. In particular, let me pull this up right here. I can tell you, like currently, right now. Okay, so I just on the radio station currently at this moment, Philadelphia is the Razor's Edge. That's off their debut from '84. But right before that was Skillet, Psycho in My Head. That's their latest record.
Yeah.
Okay. And before that was Living Sacrifice with Distorted. And then I played Symphony, then Symphony of Heaven played You Shall Be as Gods. And they are kind of a blackened death metal. They were on, I think they're still on Rottweiler. But like on the hot tracks right now, I can tell you that let's pull it up here. Hot tracks. Witch Hazel. We're still playing Becoming the Archetype. The song's The Ruins. How about The Words 66? Tonight the album's Rock and Roll Preaching. Skillet, Rusty Ship, Bride, Ain't No Loser, the new Applehead song Down. There was a single from True Strength called The Holy Spirit. That's in hot tracks. Narnia's latest Wake Up Call. Reign of Glory. We're still kind of playing Riding on the Wall. Striper, Ashes to Ashes, Dark Horse Hero.
Man, that's awesome.
Brothers in Arms, A Vulture's Gathering, In Plain Sight. We're playing The River from Les Carlson's album He's Coming. And here's something if you like 80s party metal, the hair metal.
Yeah.
Darren Lazari's Action.
Mm.
Darren Lazari had 2 albums that came out in the 80s, and they were under the name Action, Axtion. He became a Christian, and I'm not quite sure exactly how long ago, but he became a Christian. And what he did was he took some of his older songs,
right?
Frankly, we'll just say the most unoffensive, and then he wrote like 4 or 5 new songs, recorded them all, and put out this album. It's called It Never Comes Easy. And if you like that kind of music, it's totally flown under the radar.
Man, that's awesome.
Good stuff.
Well, so, man, y'all heard it here. If you like Christian rock and metal, Heaven's Metal Streaming Radio is the place to go.
That's right.
You're going to hear bands you love. You're going to find bands you've never heard that you love.
Discovering stuff.
And you're going to discover music, and it's going to be all types of hard rock and heavy metal. So tell us, where can people go and find this to listen to it, and how can we in the Christian metal community support your ministry with a Heaven Metal Streaming Radio?
So first off, generally when I post anything, it's Live 365 is the platform. And in the platform, there is a link for our station. Just like Christian Sullivan's got, the name of his station just evaporated out of the front of my head. This happens when you get old, guys.
Yeah, we interviewed him. We got that one down.
Absolutely. Super cool.
And, it is, let's see here. If you want to go to live365.com,
okay.
You search for stations, and I have us listed under Christian music, but also under heavy metal, and it's Heaven's Metal Streaming Radio. Now there's another way, and here's the cool thing: they have an app. So if you download the app to your phone, who wants to listen to it on your phone? sync it in your car, right? Because your car probably has Bluetooth. Now you're listening to this on your car stereo.
Nice.
Okay. There's also the Get Me Radio app. And Get Me Radio, if you have Roku, you can download their app to your Roku device at home. If you have like a home theater setup, you can do the same thing through Get Me Radio. Search for Heaven's Metal Stream. You got to get the streaming in there. If you don't get the streaming in there, you won't find it. But Heaven's Metal Streaming Radio. And again, it's just all these ways. You could do the same thing. They have an app. You can download it to your phone. They're on the Get Me Radio has like 10 different ways you can listen. So whether it's on your phone, on your computer, through your Roku thing, if you do that kind of stuff at home, they have, I believe they also have an iPhone app as well. You could pray for us really in direction.
Yeah.
And that really has to do with right now we run Pastor Bob daily, Monday through Friday, every morning at 7 a.m. Pacific time or thereabouts. It's kind of I don't want to interrupt a song to have Pastor Bob come in. So a couple of things. You could pray for direction, and you could also pray for time and just strength. Every time like when I do a Artist of the Month, I have to create 20 playlists, 25 playlists, okay? Which means I have to import all the music. Then I have to create all of those playlists. Then I have to insert some of the little, you're listening to our Artist of the Month, right? Then I have to program each playlist to a certain time. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of work.
So I have to do that with Pastor Bob daily. I have to import the weeks ahead, and then I have to schedule. I have to then set it up as a playlist and then schedule it.
Man, that's another ministry partner. Yeah, you keep mentioning all our ministry partners. There's a thing.
Right, exactly. That's what I was thinking too. For sure, gotta love it. I think we all work together. Honestly, it all works together.
Yeah. So I mean, those are things, guys, that you could really pray, because sometimes it's like, and then I've the Warriors Night Out broadcast, he has asked to come on board. So that's another, takes me time. I have to import I have to import the show. I need to schedule the show. It all takes time. And just trying to be the best steward of the time that I allot for this, because family and everything else, I don't want this to overtake anything else. Honestly, there were times in my life where I would have let this overtake everything else, and I'm not doing that.
Hey, I figure. So HM, aka Heaven's Metal, whatever, they used to do this feature called So and So Says, of course.
Yep.
Interview secular artists, but now I'm gonna one of my favorite questions that they used to ask bands, I'm gonna ask you, and this would be the closing question.
Okay.
So our closing questions. What do you think about Jesus Christ and also his claims to be the way, truth, and the light?
What do I think about? Well, ultimately, it doesn't take this around. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what I think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because Jesus Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, was born, lived a sinless life, died, and then rose again in the flesh. He ascended to the right hand of the Father in heaven, where he is. It is because of him that I do what I do. It is because of his Holy Spirit imparted in me that allows me to, I think, just to do what I do. And I'm sorry, Ken, what was the second half of that one?
Oh yeah, what are your beliefs about his claims to be the way, the truth, and the life?
I absolutely. It, like I say, totally, he's the reason why I do this. Born of a virgin, you know, the graciousness that Jesus has extended to me is, as you get, I don't know, I'm 55, okay? And as I get older, I continually realize how much I don't know, how much I don't deserve, and how grateful I am that he didn't put out a smoking flax or broke a bruised reed.
Wow. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. I appreciate you. We appreciate you, man, for your time and the information you've given us, and even just for being a ministry partner and doing this the whole thing, like just the
You're welcome.
broadcast in the first place. We need as much of this as possible, in order to promote the music and, of course, promote the gospel. So
yeah.
Right. Awesome.
My whole goal with Heaven's Metal streaming radio was really simply for a place for someone they could listen to music that hopefully they enjoy, that hopefully at some point the message, whether it's an evangelistic message or a message of comfort or a message of encouragement, that they take that away and they're able to live their lives, following Christ the best that they can. So
awesome. Well, man, I really hope this turns on a lot of more people, maybe that hadn't heard of it, and then they go check it out. So sounds great, man. Well, y'all have a great day and appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
God bless you all.